We're good.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order of Smithville Village Council. I'd ask for roll call.
Allen,
Here.
Haas,
Here.
Heicher,
Here.
Kerr,
Here.
Mullins,
Here.
Thorne.
Okay. Of course, Scott had indicated that he would not be joining us. He's on vacation. Then we're going to go on with you should have received a copy of the minutes from our prior meeting prior to tonight. And if you'd had the opportunity to review those, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve those.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Larry for the second. Okay. We have motion and second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Heicher.
Yep.
Kerr,
Yes.
Mullins.
Yes.
All right. The only thing that we would have as far as for correspondence, I did have Beverly send to each of you. It was a public hearing notice that was sent from the commissioners, obviously county commissioners, in its regards to a public hearing, and it is for the Wayne County Agricultural Security Area. I don't know if any of you had maybe seen anything in the paper concerning this. Obviously, it's basically an agreement that some of the property owners are wanting to enter into that obviously would restrict the use of their land. So again, too, it's something they're going to have a public hearing on. The properties that are listed here are Ramsire Real Estate. Also, Carly Siebel is the trustee. Then there's Ramsire Farms, also Ross Carmody too, which is another farm in that general area. So it's a number of the farmers in that area. And again, that meeting notice is sent to you. It's going to be Wednesday following the 9 a.m. commissioner session at the Wayne County Administration Building. So again, if any of you have interest, you'd be welcome to attend that. But I did send that to you by Beverly. So if there's no other correspondence, then we'll move into our old business section of our meeting. And I think the first thing we have on there is obviously we've been discussing and had some options thrown out in relationship to the lot mowing ordinance and upgrading that from what we currently have. And I think the one question that Jason had thrown back to us in trying to complete a new ordinance proposal or draft from what John has brought together for us was the question again, going back to if this ordinance currently, our mowing ordinance for empty lots is a standalone ordinance that is not part of property maintenance. Obviously, property maintenance deals with properties with buildings on them, and it has specific language. We had talked about making it as part of that property maintenance ordinance. And again, Jason asked if that was our intent to give him that direction. That way, then he'll know, which direction we're wanting to go. And he had said that, and I thought it was something that we should collectively make a conscious decision about to allow Jason then to continue work on obviously the proposed ordinance. And I don't know if John, I know you had emailed back, you're welcome to add your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, I believe it should be one ordinance. I think because for a couple of reasons. First, it's difficult enough to find the correct ordinance when you're looking for one. And I think it'd be smart just to have one ordinance for property management. The other reason, I guess, I think all the properties that I've seen are right within a residential area. It's not as if we are trying to get folks that are out in a farmland to try to cut their farm down. These are residential lots that 90% of the people who own them take care of them and do a really good job. It's just a few that just don't want to do them. Now, as of our last meeting, all the lots that I spoke of have been cut. But I believe that's because of the letters sent out using the old ordinance that they have to be cut twice a year. So everything that I talked about has been cut. The two properties closest to me were the two properties that were in question. Also, the property on North Summit Street, well, that's a whole different issue. So I'm going to call that a different issue.
Right.
Mowing grass is the least of their worries.
Yeah, and we will talk about that since the last meeting later on in our agenda here.
But I think it should be one ordinance. Combine the two ordinance together into one. That's what I think.
Sure. And again, by doing that, if we place it within the property maintenance ordinance, then it becomes part of the responsibilities, obviously, of a zoning administrator, John Parker. Currently, because of the way the ordinance is being outside of that, it currently does not fall into his level of responsibility for enforcement. And again, we have asked him, his thoughts, and he had said that was something that he kind of thought was, obviously something in place, but maybe not necessarily the best thing. But I think again, too, probably he did, and I did email out to each of you. He did give us a response in writing relative to his thoughts. I think that he does have, and I guess the question back to Jason is incorporated within his area of responsibility. Again, that we'd be able to address, I think, the concerns that he has from the standpoint of the enforceability, from the standpoint of interpretation, especially maybe the language as it relates to, if we get too specific about what we consider noxious weeds or those types of things that we would define. And again, I think he's more than willing to, and obviously John is very thorough with any enforcement effort that he has made in the zoning area. He's very thorough, very precise, very accurate. And it is something obviously we are copied on as he obviously does his work within the village. But again, I guess that would be a question to throw back out to Jason. I think as long as we can make certain, I think the concerns that he would have in that proposal that we obviously are able to address those.
So I would just say, I think John's point is well taken. I think I would concur. Property maintenance code is probably the right place to put the grass issue. I think we should be, as opposed to being specific about what we're going to define as noxious weeds and whatnot, I think we should make it more broad and general and leave that interpretation to John Parker and whoever else might be a subsequent zoning administrator. I think everyone can probably identify what needs to be enforced against and what doesn't. So if we're broad, I think it gives discretion to the enforcement person and lets them make a judgment call of what does or does not meet that threshold.
I tend to agree with Jason on this point. I mean, we're simply asking our residents to keep their lot that isn't trees or bushes within 12 inches. It's not a huge, it's a reasonable ordinance, I believe. Most places are 8 to 10, and they don't have any separation either. But to list out every weed or grass to be cut seems kind of really irrelevant. It's the main body of a piece of property needs to be within 12 inches. It's simple as that.
That's my next question is, do you want 12 or do you want 10? The current property maintenance section says 10. So the 12 inches is for the undeveloped lots, 10 is for developed lots.
I have no problem with either one. It's completely up to everyone here sitting here.
I guess, I think that 10 to 12, given that one had one measurement and the other had the other, and I don't think it matters that greatly, but I think probably 12 would make sense is a foot. So
anything, to me, anything over 12 is just kind of negligent. But it's, again, what does everybody else think? Is 12 inches too long? Is it too short? Does anyone else have an opinion?
I don't think there's much difference between the two measurements. And as we, recent example shows, most reasonable folks, when they receive a letter, will comply pretty quickly. It's documented from the village or whatever municipality, and they know that there's things that can occur down the line if they don't comply. It's my opinion. I'm fine with 12.
Yeah, I'm fine with 12 also. Like Matt said, I don't think there's much difference between 10 or 12, and it seems like they acted pretty quickly once we got that. So, yeah.
I'm fine with 12.
and
Sounds
again,
good.
and I presume that, we're all pretty much in agreement to place it within property maintenance then.
So, okay, that brings up the next question. Do we want to put it under the exterior property area section? The subsection G is what already talks about grass, or do we want to put in an entirely new subsection that deals with grass entirely? Do you
I
care?
guess subsection G, what does it cover?
So subsection G currently states, so it's in exterior property areas, and it says no owner of any premises shall permit the exterior property areas to deteriorate or debase the appearance of the neighborhood, reduce property values in the neighborhood, adversely alter the appearance and general character of the neighborhood, create a fire, safety, or health hazard, or to allow it to become a public nuisance. Such conditions include, but are not limited to, lots with structures shall maintain grass, brush, briars, burrs, Russian and Canadian thistles at a height not to exceed 10 inches. Outlots and vacant lots are governed by section 93.40.
I guess, to me, I would think that, if you put it in there, obviously it'd be easy enough to find, meaning that you would have all the area related to grass will be all in that same section then. Correct.
Okay.
I think
that works.
what Jason is saying real plainly is ordinance 93.4 would go away, and we would add the correct wording to what Jason just spoke of. So 93.4 only deals with lots. The other ordinance deals with all other residential lots with buildings.
Right, and just to be clear, this would be two separate ordinances. It would be an ordinance establishing the new grass area and then an ordinance repealing 93.40.
Okay, I didn't know that, but good. I'm glad you're on top of that.
And then I guess, so if we're all good with that, the next thing I want to address, as pointed out by John Parker, was about whether or not we want to commit to having the village contract with somebody to mow if the residents don't comply.
I think that's a very important part, and I agree with John Parker for the simple reason, if we decide to mow it ourselves, we're liable if something happens. If we contract it out, those folks are in the business of taking care of lawns. They're bonded. They know what they're doing. I think we let it go to the professional. And we don't have to have our guys tied up mowing somebody's grass. Anyone else?
That's I would lean to agree with both Johns. on that point as well.
Yeah,
I
and
agree
think
also.
It makes a lot of sense to go that direction as well.
Okay, Tom, do you know, did we ever get a clear answer from Pam about the recovery of fees?
No, we did not. She was going to follow up with the auditor's office. Initially, she did inquire and I was copied on it. And they sent back, the auditor's office sent back basically a screenshot of a program.
Yeah, I
which-
saw that.
Which then I responded back to Pam, maybe it was me. But could she give me understanding as to what that program indicated, what priority those payments would be applied? And Pam said no, and looking at it, she doesn't know that she would, and she would reach back out to them. So, but again, that's something we can follow up with them on. But I think that it appeared as though obviously certain things were a priority. Obviously,
Right.
real estate taxes and penalties also seemed, at least in my mind, appeared as though their penalties priority over possibly other assessments. But she was going to clarify that because I couldn't tell from that myself.
So I'll just say, I'm going to be at the auditor's office tomorrow morning. I can ask them as well.
That would be great. That would be great. So I guess my question, does that give you enough direction? From the
I think so,
standpoint
yeah.
of
I
this
think I know
point?
exactly what it is that we want. So I will get something out. My plan will be to get something out next week so everyone can look at it.
Sure.
And then hopefully you can put it on first read at the August 4 meeting.
Okay, and if I could suggest to you, if you would consider, obviously maybe sending a draft initially to John Parker.
Okay.
To give him the opportunity to just look over it. As much as he's been involved in the enforcement, I think it makes some sense too.
Okay. Yep, sure.
All right.
Hey, Tom, before we move on.
Sure.
This is kind of along those lines. I got one of my neighbors, and I'm sorry they all talk to me, but they asked me about the stuff that grows out onto the sidewalks, which we've had before.
Okay.
And I'm just going to say it was Mr. Creekmore's house.
Correct.
And
I
who's
can
going
address-
to go around and look at these problems
Larry,
and say your grass is too long?
sure.
Also, there's
Larry?
2 junk cars over on Mill Street since the day the people moved in there 2 years ago. I see they cut the pavement within a foot of the 2 cars and just kept right on going.
Okay.
It's nice to say we're going to enforce laws to say cut the grass, but there's a lot of things. Whose job is it to drive around town and say this isn't right? I don't know.
Now, Larry, on all the sidewalks, we did also send out letters, I believe if my memory is correct, to at least 5 property owners, including the one you're referencing, where we either had shrubs, trees, or even other land ground cover growing onto sidewalks. We sent those out about the same time we did as far as the mowing notices. The majority of them, only one got back and kind of was questioning us, but we responded back to them. And again, they were given a length of time in which to address the situation. If they don't, then again, in that situation, we will take action in which to correct the measures. That's with sidewalks. Generally, what we do is about the same time that you're looking at, the mowing, we generally take a look. And in my case, I asked Mike. There had been some individuals that had called me, but I asked Mike to review the list. He provided us a list. And then Becky prepared, obviously, notifications that went out. We will follow up and take care of those. As far as vehicles, the key is if they're unlicensed vehicles, meaning they're not licensed currently, then I think where you need to contact, obviously, is obviously the police chief, and someone would need to file a report. And that's something that obviously falls under his jurisdiction in regards to enforcement. So again, if those folks would have called here, we would refer, but in your case, if they have, you're welcome to refer them to him and he would be glad to follow up. And again, likewise, once we obviously have addressed the sidewalks, if there's any others, let us know. We'd be glad to send out notifications. So, but the ones that I recall, we had the one on the corner of Center Street and Summit, on the corner of Milton Street and Center Street. We also had one on David Street and South Summit Street. We also
Northeast
had
Street.
one on Northeast Street, and we also had one on North Summit Street before the nuisance property. And there may have been one other one that I don't recall right off the top of my head. And along that same line, the one property owner did raise the issue of a water shutoff valve that was in the sidewalk that stuck up. So obviously I've spoken with Mike. He has indicated we may have some of those elsewhere, and he's preparing a list of those properties in which obviously would be our responsibility in which to have addressed. And we probably will be doing that ourselves in the near future in relationship to obstruction. So, okay. That answer your question?
Sure does. I'll give them your number. No, I'm just kidding.
Fine. They're welcome to call the office at any
Call the
time.
village hall.
Leave a message, so. All right, then if there's nothing else on that topic, we're gonna move into the other item on old business, is electric rates. Again, as I related to you at the last meeting, is that we are under contract for electric rates, actually through May of 21. But we work with a broker. The broker had indicated that she felt as though that the electric rates currently are extremely low. As a result, her concern was whether or not possibly those rates might increase between now and when our current contract expires. She did give me a spreadsheet, basically showing projected savings. And again, too, the rates that we are currently at aren't bad rates, and we save substantially over the prior rates that we'd been paying prior to the most recent contract. Again, it's one of those things that I did ask Pam. Pam did indicate to me in conversation that she is okay. She feels it's good. Also, whether or not it's an indicator, one thing I do find is that we get a lot of solicitations from other brokers that would like to handle our account. There was one that, obviously knew the expiration date of May of 21. Since the last meeting, he sent me an email, not that he represents us, but he sent me an email basically stating the same. He knew that our contract was not up, but he believes as though that now would be a good time to renew. And of course, why he was saying that, he also would like an opportunity, obviously, to represent us or to control our accounts. So again, from the standpoint of, I think from the standpoint of the research I have, and from the standpoint of what Pam has added into the discussion, I guess it would be my recommendation that we go ahead and renew. It'll be with the same company, but again, it would be obviously it would not change our rates currently. What it would do is obviously of May 21st, we're locking into a contracted rate amount that would be lower than our current rate. So,
Is this for 1 year, Mayor, or 2 years?
did I forward it to you the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, and I don't have it in front of me, and to be quite honest, I believe it's multiple, but without looking at it again, I can't answer that question for you, John. Does anyone have it printed? I don't have it in front of me right now.
I'm sure if it's on an email, I can look it up there.
Okay. I want to say 3 years, but I hate to say that without reading it in writing for me, because the last one was 3 years. So, and the last time we went through this process, I did take the time to go and speak with obviously the head of Orville Utilities, and he was very useful, was willing to sit down with me and kind of went through as far as his thoughts, relationship to commodities as far as utilities and the market. Obviously, it was not anything that I'd ever really been involved with. And I think that the information that he gave me obviously was very useful. I learned a number of things, and he felt the direction at that time that we were going as far as with a broker made sense. So,
Tom, I've got it here in front of me.
Yep.
It looks like what's highlighted as the best price and term offer.
correct.
Excuse me. There's options for 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, or even a 55 month.
And obviously, the best cost savings, and that's probably why I had 3 years in my mind. Here's the best cost savings, obviously, or difference in rates that they quote to us is if we commit to that 36 months. Am I correct in looking at it? Jason, do you agree? It looks like consistently in all of them.
Yeah, but the Constellation, it looks like there's a 55-month option, which is actually the most savings.
Yeah, but if I recall, and did I forward the cover letter to you?
Me.
I just see an email from Sandy Carpenter.
Yeah, correct. That's the person that represents the account.
Yeah, it says the new rate would start May 2021.
Correct. But in the letter, I was thinking that she possibly committed or felt as though the AP Energy, because AP Energy, other than the 55 months, is the best, right? Looking at it.
I think yes.
On the 36 months, I should say. Or is it?
No.
No, Constellation is the one she must be recommending, isn't it? And looking at, because looking down through, it is the whole way down through. So it's just a matter of how many months we want to commit out. Because I do have it in front of me. My assistant Beverly was very useful and printed a copy and brought it.
Yeah, Sandy recommended Constellation.
Constellation, correct. That's where she's recommending. And again, it would probably be up to us. She doesn't recommend it length. I think she's allowing that up to us if I look at this.
Yeah, that's my interpretation.
Okay. I don't know. You know, to me, it's one of those things. How do you know the market? I think that we were served well with 36 months. Whether or not you will be, and a lot of it has to do with the economy and has to do with as far as what's happening out there relative to obviously energy usage. I guess my thinking from past, I would probably go with 36 months recommendation from Constellation would be what I would ask. So, any thoughts? And I guess, are you willing to, what I will do is call her, but obviously I needed approval from you folks in which to be authorized to sign a contract with her in relationship to, you know, obviously the extension beyond the current contract, May of 21.
What was the rate for 3 years?
3 years,
Yeah,
it's 0.04113.
so it's a little better than the 24 month.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
I would say go for the 3 year. You really don't know what's going to happen, so.
No, you don't know.
I'm good with the 3 year.
I'm gonna agree with Larry. Go with
Okay.
3.
Okay. Others?
Ditto.
I'd say 3.
Okay. I guess what I would ask then, if you'd mind putting a form of motion, it would be Constellation New Energy, and again, 36-month contract. Starting May 21st of 21, or May of 21, I should say. So
I
someone
make a
will,
motion. I make a motion. We go with Constellation New Energy, be the electric rate for 3 years, starting in May of 2021.
I second.
okay. We have motion and a second for Constellation New Energy for a 3-month or 3-year period, starting in May of 21. Any questions or further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Haas,
Yes.
Heicher,
Yes,
Kerr,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes,
All right. Is there anything else under old business that we need to bring up tonight? If there isn't, then we'll move on to new business. The first item there is nuisance property on North Summit Street. We've talked about this. Basically, it's on there for me to kind of give you an update, and I'll allow Jason to join in as well. Since our last meeting, we had some emails, and then eventually the chief had suggested a meeting. And at that Zoom meeting, the intent was to have a discussion specifically as it related with John Parker, myself, Jason, the police chief, and then Trish did also sit in on that. Basically to make a decision whether or not we proceed under the current ordinance that we had in place, that we had begun enforcement mechanisms prior to COVID-19, or whether or not we wanted to start enforcement under the new property nuisance ordinance that we had passed in the meantime. Just in a basic, it's a real shortened version. There was a lot of discussion, but I think the decision was made that we would continue on the current path that we'd already had begun. Partly because I think it was quicker for us to see some results versus under the new ordinance. It probably would have taken a little longer from the standpoint of some of the requirements within ordinance in relationship to incidents and space possibly between those incidents. And again, the intent is that we're going to pick this back up. And my understanding is that obviously we'd sent notice by obviously registered mail, and those had not been signed for. But at this point in time, they will be served on that individual. Since that Zoom meeting, I know that John Parker did verify the specific agent for the LLC. So we identified the individual that it would be proper in which to serve the notice to. And then at this point in time, once that's served, it will be obviously a matter handled within, and I remember correctly, it's common pleas, I think, Jason, correct? That the chief said? I think the chief had said that. But regardless, it will be handled within the court system. And there is obviously a punitive, penalty that's assigned to that, as well as there will be court costs that will obviously be a part of that process as well. The way it's set up, actually every day can be considered a new violation, but in discussion, we thought it was prudent on our part, not necessarily to file a new, obviously, complaint every day, but to file possibly weekly. So it would become very rapidly a cumulative effect as far as the cost. And the hope would be that we would find that there would be obviously motivation by the property owner in which to address the situation as it appears there. Obviously, John went back out and kind of reviewed the property and indicated if anything, the property has deteriorated even more since the initial enforcement action was started. And again, the way it will work is obviously John basically will be, like I say, our expert in regards to compliance or non-compliance in the process. So, but again, just in a nutshell, we are moving forward, and hopefully that, once that's actually served, there may be some motivation to deal with the property that we see. So, and Jason, you're welcome to add anything you'd like.
Nothing other than that I just remembered it's municipal court.
Municipal, I couldn't remember. Thank you. So, any questions on that? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. And again, this is a contract with AgriSludge. If you recall, AgriSludge is the company that operates our sewer plant and our water plants on a contractual basis. Again, they're the individuals that have a licensed operators that are required from the EPA. And again, too, on the contractual basis, what they're offering is a contract renewal. In that contract renewal, they are proposing no increase in rates at all. Basically to hold the rates the exact same place they were under the old contract, which obviously was a benefit to us. It is something that was taken to BPA at their last meeting. BPA obviously had reviewed it and they recommend that we accept the extension. And again, too, there were very few changes in the contract otherwise. The only thing they changed at all related to if the village were to want to hire an individual that works for their company, we are not to have direct conversation with them. The only way that we could hire them is by placing an ad, and if that person were to apply. And again, it was only raised not because of us, because of the situation in another contracted community. And obviously the operator felt as though that they wanted to add that. From our perspective, that's not an issue at all. We have no desire in which to basically operate the plants directly, simply from the standpoint of obviously a lot of the requirements that fall upon the licensed operator are handled by AgriSludge. Obviously, we're copied and we're part of that, but again, the responsibility falls into their lap. And they do bring a lot of other benefits to the equation, simply because they have a lot of expertise in-house relative to maintenance, whether it's some of the basic electrical work they can do, various other things maintenance-wise. They have the ability, even within their shop, to create or make. So from the standpoint of, as far as a lot of those things, it's a benefit to us. I did ask Jason to review the contract from a legal perspective, and obviously he signed off on it. And then also I asked Pam, and Pam also signed off from the financial aspect when I met with her about a week ago. So, so I guess there would be, are there any specific questions that you folks would have?
Just a couple, just for getting some history, being the new member on council. How long has AgriSludge been contracted by the village? Do you have any sense? Not, you don't have to give me a specific year, but just a general sense.
I would say probably, you know, time goes quickly, but I'm thinking it probably has been at least, I would say probably somewhere in the 8-year period of time. I was trying to remember, and I don't know if Beverly remember when we basically changed. We had licensed operator that worked for the village.
Okay.
The issue was that individual that was a licensed operator. We had other employees that worked under that person, but obviously, as you may realize, the license is what the real key is, that they have to sign off on all reports.
Yeah.
When that person retired, obviously some of the village employees that might have had interest, obviously the test is pretty rigorous. Those individuals were not able to pass test with some multiple attempts. And the one thing that we find is the market out there for licensed operators with the right class licenses is very limited. Thus, you know, like I say, a lot of operators, it really is difficult for you to find them, especially when you're competing against larger communities that obviously higher payroll amounts that they could pay those individuals. What works well in this case is, you know, obviously AgriSludge has a number of individuals that are licensed operators. And obviously there's minimum requirements of hours which are covered in the contract for the licensed operator themselves. But then obviously there are individuals that may not be directly licensed that will be working for AgriSludge under the direction of their license. So,
okay.
But again, that's why we did. And actually we had someone else initially, and I can't tell you who, maybe the first period of time, but then after that, we did obviously entertain from AgriSludge, and at that point BPA changed to AgriSludge, and that's through, you know, the current period of time. We've been very satisfied with AgriSludge's, you know, operation. In the letter, one of the things they indicated was that they may see in the near future, they based this contract when they came to us upon the level of maintenance they saw that our plants needed, particularly the sewer plant. They are feeling as though we're getting to the point that a lot of the maintenance that needed to be caught up has been completed. They already offered to us. They think that there's coming a period of time that they may not necessarily need the level of employment within our plant. They're willing to consider backing that off, which if we do that, then obviously we would obviously have a new contract, an addendum to a contract based upon the, you know, the percentage as far as the number of hours that we would be looking at as far as having within the plant, which I give them some credit. that they're willing to have that conversation up front and say that may be something in the future here we want to consider. And say right up front that, you know, they'll base it upon the number of hours that we're currently getting for the rate. And we would, you know, work it accordingly. So.
Yeah. Does the, is the plant ever audited by the EPA?
Oh, yes.
They're in person and in the books
person.
themselves?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because what they do is obviously we have a license for the plant itself. It is our license. Okay. And they have to come in and they have to renew our license, which happens, I can't tell you exactly how often. But when they obviously need to renew a license, they'll come in. And a lot of times, and you're probably familiar with, they utilize the renewal of our license for the plant itself to be a time that they can use it as motivation for us to be doing things they'd like us to do.
Sure.
But we have been very proactive. The biggest area of concern that we have really been trying to work on is the inflow and infiltration, you know, obviously in the sanitary sewer lines, because that obviously impacts the flows of the sewer plant. We have excess capacity by all means, but in heavy rainfall, obviously we exceed our ability to obviously process. Obviously that all has to be reported. And obviously that's one of the things that AgriSludge does, and I'm copied. But again, we have to tell them what we're doing towards that and the work that we're doing towards that. But again, too, it is something the EPA obviously is very involved in as far as the licensing of our plant. So
when EPA audits, is that a joint audit? So they're talking with both village and AgriSludge representatives simultaneously?
Correct, because that's one of the benefits. AgriSludge obviously represents us within that period of time. They involve BPA in relationship to anything that comes up or brought up. And obviously everything that is brought to the village from the standpoint of EPA, of course, as me, as the mayor, all that correspondence comes to me. And not only do they usually that correspondence doesn't come just here, but it comes to my home address, because I want to make certain that I see that. So obviously there's direct communication with the village as well. But one of the benefits is AgriSludge, obviously knowing what they do. And they really do have a relationship with the people from the EPA, which I think serves us as well, because they have a basis of relationship with these individuals. So
my last question would be the records, the log books that are maintained by AgriSludge. Does AgriSludge store them at their own facility, or are they stored with the village, or are there copies with the village? Or
my understanding and answer to that would be is there's multiple locations that that's stored. And this contract does specifically cover the responsibility of record. And why it lists both of us, because obviously on weekends, Saturday and Sundays, generally we will do the testing necessary on those days and not see the microatom on a rotational basis. So again, too, you know, obviously it's something that AgriSludge is comfortable with us, obviously drawing and doing sampling on the weekends, which again, too, obviously we do, and then they have off set of hours during the week.
Yeah. And I only asked that question because in my line of work, if as far as a regulator is concerned, if you didn't document it, you didn't do it. And so it's important that the contract be clear as to who's maintaining and storing the records. So when the EPA comes, you can quickly pull them out and produce them to the regulator. So.
And again, for the most part, my understanding is that our licensing has gone fairly smooth, probably better now that AgriSludge is involved. And the real key, I think, at all with the sewer plant has to do with us, again, moving forward. And yet, that's one of the reasons why this fall's OPWC submission for project will be on some work on sanitary sewer lines. We've already identified and done some cleanup work, but they need obviously some repair work in relationship to those. And what we're working on is a 5-year plan, similar we did on water mains. And we've been talking with CT about the possibility of doing a master study and having a 5-year, obviously, you know, plan in relationship to trying to address all the issues within the sanitary sewer system. So, and again, as long as EPA sees those kinds of things, I think that they feel as though they're willing to be hands off versus if you were to do nothing, then they can bring findings against you. Obviously, then you're under order, and then the trouble is you don't have the luxury of spacing the expense. You may have to do things, you know, that obviously rather expensive, and find a way in which to pay for them. So,
Okay, thanks.
sure. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion for authorizing me to sign the contract per the BPA's recommendation with AgriSludge.
I'll motion to authorize a contract between the village and AgriSludge as approved by the BPA.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Haichu,
Yes,
Kerr,
Yes.
Mullins,
yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes,
Okay. Thank you, folks. The next thing on our agenda, as you should see, is the resolution for OWDA loan. This is in relation to the water tower project. As most of you are aware, we did receive notification from OPWC in relationship to our grant being released, the $500,000 the state is providing to us. And as part of that, of course, part of the funding was going to be obviously a loan of $600,000. The balance of it, of course, we're paying with money that we've been setting aside that we do have in the capital budget for obviously the water. And again, too, this will allow me to enter into the contract with OWDA, which again allows us to borrow. Now, we did receive the document just tonight before the meeting, 62 pages that we're to review that CT Jennifer had forwarded to us. It's the application. And after this approval from you folks tonight would allow us to submit that application, we need to have it in OWDA's hands by August 1st to be considered at their August meeting. In looking at it, it appears as though the one benefit to us as far as with COVID is that the interest rate at this point, what they have on the document is 1.62%, which is outstanding because when we started this project initially, forecasting what the interest rate would be, obviously with that much money, the savings is substantial to the village. And what we have decided in talking with Pam, given what that rate is, we are only going to ask for a 20-year loan payback. We had considered 30, but with the interest rate where it's at, obviously we feel as though it would be prudent on our part to lower or to shorten the length of time that the contract is or the loan is, which obviously will benefit us as well. I am going to ask Jennifer, had not sent today, but I'll ask her for an amortization schedule with the new rate because she's given us those throughout the process, depending upon what the rate was. But I know this is the very lowest rate that we have seen thus far. So, and again, I guess what I would ask is a motion. It's going to be a resolution, so I think we need to suspend if we can.
Motion to suspend.
Second,
Okay, a motion, a second to suspend. Any discussion on the suspension? Hearing none, roll call.
Kerr,
Yes.
Mullins,
yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
yes,
Haichu,
yes,
All right, thank you. And now we would entertain a motion on resolution number 2020-1616.
16.
Okay, a resolution authorizing the mayor, Tom Polson, to apply for and accept and enter into cooperative agreement for the construction of the water tower project between the village of Smithville and the Ohio Water Development Authority and declaring an emergency. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
second,
Second. Go ahead,
Okay.
John.
We'll give that to John. We have a motion and a second. Approving resolution 2020-16. Any further discussion or questions? If there isn't any, roll call.
Mullins,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
yes,
Haichu, Kerr.
yes,
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll get that taken care of and submitted. Then moving on the agenda, the next item actually we do not have, simply because Pam had indicated that it was not ready yet. It's something that she needed to, like I say, review and to make certain that she was compliant with it. She did indicate to me earlier today, and I told her it was not a problem. She was unable to attend. She's on her way back from New York State. So I said that was not a problem, but that will be at the next meeting. Moving on to the next item is establishing a fund ordinance. And again, this is in regards to the CARES relief funds. As you're aware, the federal government have provided monies to the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio, thus some of those monies are being provided to the county level, which then also was made available to obviously municipalities. We did, as you recall, already pass a resolution relative to us, basically participating. But what this ordinance does is it actually establishes the proper funds or the proper line items within our accounting system, because these monies have to go into a specific specified fund, and then they have to be obviously paid out of that fund. And again, this is basically a ordinance that Pam had recommended. She had forwarded to Jason, and then Jason obviously personalized it for our personal use here at the village. And again, basically it does establishes a fund to allow us to be prepared in which to receive monies. Again, one of the benefits of having Pam is obviously Norton is going through this process, and the information and the things that she's learned in that process is benefiting us as a community as well, because it's not something that we have to go out and do that research on, given that she's doing it for them. It benefits us from the standpoint of what we can claim and what specific monies we might be able to receive regarding this. So again, this is just to establish the fund. And again, it needs to be obviously passed. So we would need to suspend if we could.
Motion to
Motion.
suspend.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to suspend. Any discussion on the suspension? Hearing none, roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Heicher,
Yes,
Kerr,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Then next would be the ordinance 2020-17, I presume, given that
Yes.
we did 16. And it's an ordinance establishing Fund 260, named the Local Coronavirus Relief Funds, and declaring an emergency. Can I entertain a motion?
Make a motion, we pass a motion to establish a fund for the CARES Act relief funding.
second.
Okay, we have motion and second. Is there any questions or further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Haas,
Yes.
Heicher,
yes,
Kerr,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes,
Yes.
All
Do
right.
you
That is
have
the
any
only
idea how
thing,
much money we're gonna get?
not at this point.
Well, somebody
Um,
spilled the beans about Wayne and Green Township already.
Well, part of it is because, again, Larry, you may be aware, one of the things they've done is what they originally came out with guidance of what it could be used for has changed as with a lot of different programs that have rolled out. So again, I guess I'm reluctant to say at this point in time until Pam is verified.
Okay.
Especially because, this is obviously being recorded. I think it just is prudent on our part to wait until she confirms what that number will be. But I do believe it may be substantial benefit to us. So is all I can say. Okay.
Okay,
Anything else under new business that is not on the agenda? If there's nothing else under new business, we'll go to liaison reports and equipment. I guess Scott's not with us, so I won't ask for equipment. Fire,
I have nothing tonight.
okay. And I don't know that we have anything additional on police, but Veterans Memorial, Rob?
I did talk with Dana a little earlier today and really didn't have any, they haven't been meeting. And so I don't know, it doesn't look like in the foreseeable future they're gonna meet. But he did say something about that he was they were entertaining perhaps getting another memorial up there for the space side of the military now, since they've just incorporated that here in the last 3 or 4 months. And so they were going to look at that and see about putting a memorial up there for that. So I don't know how, I don't think it'll happen anytime soon or not, but they did talk about that. And he is kicking that around at this point. But outside that, that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, and maybe just a note for you, Rob, that obviously as we begin to work on appropriations, again, if you could come up with a number, your groups, as it relates to Veterans Memorial, it would be any of the activities that you do during the course of the year. Obviously, you have your own funding that comes from Greater Wayne. But again, to that, and also an estimated amount that you may need for pavers or other projects. So even if it's an estimate that you can give to us at some point, that would be good.
Okay, we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on then, as far as then we'd have parks and trees, and Matt.
Yes, we had our first meeting of the Park Board Committee last Wednesday. All members were present, and Mayor Polson attended as well, and very good meeting. We brainstormed ideas for the park in the here and now, as well as for 2021, the capital expenses that we'll submit to the Village Finance Committee in the next couple of weeks. Came up with 3 capital improvement projects. We're in the process of obtaining some cost estimates for that to submit to the Finance Committee. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. Moving on then, I guess will be streets and sidewalks, and John.
Real quick, the asphalting is done. I think we knew that. The striping was not done the day that I thought it was, but it is done now.
Looks very nice.
Yes.
So, all right. Then finance and personnel, Trish.
Pretty much just the same as last time, to get the capital plans turned in as soon as you can and start thinking about appropriations. I'll be sending an email out when we really get close to time that we need that, but I know I think I have one. I haven't gotten any others. Have you gotten some, Tom?
No.
Okay, so just keep that in mind. And also, Rob, do you know, is August 1st the deadline when they'll start doing pavers for any orders? Because I put a couple in and I'm still waiting to hear.
Yeah, I don't know if Susan copied you on that email that she copied. I reached out to Susan and she said that they only do that once a year, which I did not know. And I thought she'd copied you on that.
Yeah, she said they needed a couple of nice days in a row. And I'm thinking that we've been getting some pretty nice days. So I don't know if you guys have a date picked out yet, or if it has to be
No.
after August 1st. If you can
Not
just
that
check.
I am aware of. I can reach out to her and ask her and see what, and then I'll also ask her about our budget too. And so I'll do that
Okay.
here this evening sometime and let you know.
That's fine. She did reply to me. I mean, I just thought if you knew anything new. So
No,
yeah,
I
just
do
let me
not.
know.
Okay, we'll do. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. If there's no other reports, then I think we basically covered everything that I would have had under other items to this point. Other than say, obviously, the water tower project's coming along. As you see at the bottom of our agenda, the opening for the bids will be July 30th at 3 p.m. here at Village Hall. CT will be administering those. If anyone has interest, obviously you're welcome to come. And again, to that point, they'll be opening. There was one question that was raised by obviously one of the contractors as it related to one of the bids. The way that we structured this was that there are 3 separate projects. One will be for the construction of the new water tower. One is for the new water mains necessary. And the third is for obviously decommissioning and obviously the removal of the old tower. Obviously that's going to be down the line a ways, obviously after the new tower is brought online. But one of the questions and some of the questions that came up, and I probably will talk with Jason about is that the contractor, and looking at one of the first contractors that's going to quote for the demolition of that tower, indicated that obviously they needed a larger footprint in which to work out of. I'm going to make contact with the property owners that are adjoining to that property, and we may need to obviously execute some sort of legal agreement to allow those or the contractors in which to obviously be able to access areas and to be able to stage equipment in areas such as crane, et cetera. And again, I don't think that we're going to have any issue in securing that, but they felt, and I agreed, that it made as much sense versus a number of contractors trying to facilitate that type of agreement, each of them independent, that it made more sense for the village to pursue that, have that in place. So that's something that we would handle on behalf of whatever contractor might win that bid. So, but once I've talked with initially to the property owners in question, I probably will then turn to you to obviously draft something for that situation. Okay?
Yeah, I think we'll just need a temporary easement.
Correct. So, all right. All right. Then if there's nothing else, we have bills that were presented to you. And I would ask the opportunity for a motion and a second to approve bills.
Motion to approve the bills in the amount of $18,867.04.
Second?
We have motion and a second to pay bills. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Hitcher,
Yes.
Kerr,
Yes.
Mullins,
Yes,
Allen,
Yes,
Yes.
Haas,
All right. Again, I just bring to you the note of the upcoming meetings. Council is August 4th, and then BPA meeting will be August 10th. And again, if there's nothing else to be brought before us, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Real quick, Tom.
Yeah.
I just want to point out, I know you know, but just so everyone else knows, I'll be out of town for the next meeting. But also, I looked at the governor's orders. I think we're still under the 10. But if I'm not going to be there, I think conceivably, if you guys wanted to meet in public, maybe you could do it at the park or the pavilion. But I'm just throwing that out.
Well, maybe we should consider that and see what people think. The other option is, Jason has offered, even though he won't be around, is to make certain that if we go Zoom, to set that up for us. I did set up the Zoom meeting that we had relative to the nuisance property, and we did okay, except for the fact that obviously we had a 40-minute limit. So on my screen only, I could see that we were going to be chopped off, and I was scrambling to try to convert it. But we were chopped off, but I gave warning before. Unfortunately, Jason jumped in and basically got us back on track. So, so if nothing else, if I set up a meeting myself, it could be that it'll have to be real short and to the point, because we'd have 40 minutes to get everything done. So
that could be a good thing. It could be a good thing.
It's a motivator.
we weren't too bad tonight. So we had a lot to do. But anyways, I guess what I would do is, what we'll do is let you know one way or another prior to the meeting.
Okay.
But I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, we have motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good evening.
Yep.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Jason,
Yeah,
can you include me on the email on the vacant lot mowing ordinance?